Love. The word alone carries a weight that is almost impossible to measure. It's the subject of poetry, music, and cinema, the force that drives people to the heights of ecstasy and the depths of despair. Everyone craves it. Yet few truly understand it. We tell ourselves stories about love, convincing ourselves that it arrives like magic, that it's the result of fate, chemistry, or divine intervention. We believe we fall in love because of beauty, intelligence, charm, or some unexplainable cosmic connection. But have you ever stopped to wonder, is love really about the other person? Or is it about something deeper, something hidden within us? From the moment we're old enough to dream of love, we are told that it's about finding someone, the perfect match, the missing piece, the soulmate. We search endlessly, hoping that love will complete us, heal us, make us whole. Yet, time and time again, we see relationships fall apart. People who once claimed they couldn't live without each other drift away as if their love had never existed. Why? Zen and Buddhist teachings offer a radically different perspective, one that shatters the illusions we have about love. They say love is not an external force that happens to us. It is not something we receive. Nor is it something that exists outside of us. Instead, love is a reflection. The way someone loves you has less to do with you and more to do with them. This may sound confusing at first. After all, we are conditioned to believe that love is a direct response to who we are. We think that if someone falls in love with us, it must be because of our kindness, our intelligence, or our beauty. But what if love isn't about the qualities you possess? What if it's about what someone sees in you, something they are drawn to? Not because of who you are, but because of what they lack or what they recognize in themselves. People only fall in love for two reasons. 1, they see in you something they lack. 2, they recognize themselves in you. Think about it. A person who feels lost in life often falls in love with someone who seems grounded. A person who struggles with insecurity might be drawn to someone with unshakable confidence. Someone who has never known peace may be mesmerized by a person who carries a quiet serenity. They aren't necessarily loving you for who you are, they are loving the feeling you give them. The illusion that being with you will complete something inside them. But what happens when that feeling fades? When they no longer need what they once lacked? When they have healed, grown, or changed? The love they once felt disappears. Not because you changed, but because the void they were trying to fill is no longer there. On the other hand, there is a different kind of love. A love that does not waver. A love that recognizes rather than fills. This is the kind of love that lasts. It happens when two people are drawn together. Not because one completes the other, but because they are a mirror of each other's truth. They do not need each other to feel whole, they are already whole. They do not seek to possess love, instead, they flow into it as naturally as the ocean meets the shore. A wise Buddhist master once said, "Love is not found in another. Love is found in oneself. The other person is only a reflection." And so, we are left with a question: what kind of love do we seek? Are we searching for someone to complete us, to fill the emptiness inside us? Or are we open to the kind of love that exists beyond need, beyond longing, a love that is simply recognized rather than pursued? To truly understand love, we must go beyond romance and attraction. We must look deeper. Let us begin a story that reveals the truth about why we fall in love and what it means for each of us. This is the story of the silent wanderer and the seeker of love. Once, in a land untouched by time, there was a silent wanderer. He did not chase love. Nor did he avoid it. He simply walked through life as it was, untouched by the illusions that clouded most hearts. He observed people as they clung to love, as they grieved its loss, as they mistook longing for devotion and possession for passion. He had seen love celebrated, worshipped, and feared, yet, to him, love was not a thing to be gained or lost, it was simply a mirror, reflecting back what already existed within. One afternoon, as he rested beneath the shade of a great tree, a traveler approached. The man's shoulders sagged beneath the weight of sorrow, his steps slow and uncertain, as though he carried the weight of his past in his very bones. His eyes, though weary, still held a flicker of hope, a desperate need for answers. "Master," the traveler said, bowing slightly, "I have sought love all my life. I have given everything to it. And yet, again and again, it slips through my fingers. Why do people fall in love with some but not others? And why do I always lose those I love?" The silent wanderer studied him for a moment, then reached for a small bowl filled with water. He held it up so that the traveler could see. "Look into the water," he said gently. "What do you see?" The traveler leaned forward and peered into the bowl. "I see myself," he said. The wanderer nodded. "And what if the water were muddy? I would see nothing." The traveler answered. The wanderer's eyes softened with knowing. "That is love," he said. "When someone loves you, they do not see you. They see themselves in you. When the water is clear, they recognize something familiar, themselves. When the water is muddy, they do not truly see you at all. Instead, they see their own desires, fears, and illusions reflected back at them. Love is not something given or received. It is only ever reflected." The traveler furrowed his brow, confusion flickering across his face. "But if love is not about the beloved, then what is it about?" The wanderer smiled, a quiet patience in his expression. "People fall in love for two reasons," he said. "Either they seek what they lack, or they recognize what they already are." The traveler was silent, turning the words over in his mind. He had always believed love to be a force outside of himself, something to be earned, something that arrived like fate and left like a cruel joke. But now, the wanderer's words suggested something else entirely. After a long pause, the traveler looked up. "Then how do I know which love I have found?" The wanderer placed the bowl of water down between them. "That," he said, "is something you must discover for yourself." And so, with the weight of a new question pressing against his heart, the traveler set off on a journey, determined to understand the true nature of love. He did not know where his path would lead him, nor what answers he would find, but for the first time, he was no longer searching for love outside of himself. He was searching for the truth within. Reason 1, people fall in love to fill a void. The woman sat in silence, staring at the river as it moved effortlessly through the land, shaping the earth yet never lingering in one place. Her eyes held a quiet sadness, as if she was seeing something for the first time, something she had always known but had never put into words. "All my life," she murmured, "I have been loved. People tell me I am beautiful, intelligent, desirable. They say I make them feel alive, that I inspire them, that I complete them. But no matter how much love I receive, I still feel empty. Why?" The seeker watched her for a moment before replying, his voice soft but unwavering. "Because their love was never about you," he said. "It was about them." She turned to him, confusion flickering in her eyes. But they said they loved me. He nodded. They did. But not because of who you are, rather, because of what you made them feel. They looked at you and saw something they were missing. Confidence? Joy? Purpose? You became a symbol of what they lacked. And they clung to you as if you could give it to them. But the moment they no longer needed that feeling, their love faded. She looked away, processing his words. So, they never really loved me, she said. More to herself than to him. They loved what you represented to them. The seeker clarified. But you are not their missing piece. And you were never meant to be. She let out a quiet breath, wrapping her arms around herself. Then love is just an illusion, she whispered. Something people use to fill their emptiness. The seeker shook his head. Not all love, he said. But the kind of love built on lack, the love that comes from needing something, that love is fragile. It is like borrowing warmth from the sun. The moment night falls, the warmth is gone. She turned back to him, her voice hesitant. So if love based on need fades, does that mean I will always be alone? No, he said gently. It means you must first understand why people love you before you can find a love that stays. She thought about this for a long time. How do I know? She finally asked. How do I know if someone loves me for what they lack? Or for something deeper? The seeker picked up a small stone and dropped it into the river. The water rippled outward, creating soft waves that disappeared into the current. When someone loves you out of lack, their love is like the ripples, he said. It expands quickly, feels powerful, but soon fades. It is love that arrives with urgency, with desperation, with the feeling of I need you rather than I see you. It is love that makes people say, I cannot live without you, because they believe you hold something they do not. The woman thought back to her past relationships, to the way people had adored her, obsessed over her, promised her forever. But their love had always been like fire, blazing, consuming, then suddenly gone. She nodded slowly. I have seen that love before. The seeker continued. When someone loves you from a place of recognition rather than lack, it does not arrive like a storm. It does not pull at you, demand you, beg you to complete something in them. Instead, it is steady. Like the river itself, it flows toward you naturally. Not because it needs to, but because that is simply its path. The woman exhaled, as if releasing something she had been holding for too long. Then I have never truly been loved, she admitted. The seeker smiled gently. Not in the way that lasts, he said. But that does not mean you will not be. She looked at him then, her eyes filled with something new, not sadness, not longing, but understanding. Then what must I do? She asked. The seeker leaned back, watching the river as it continued on its way, unaffected by their presence. You must stop being the answer to someone else's emptiness, he said. If you want love that stays, you must first understand yourself, what you offer, what you need, and what you no longer wish to be. She was silent, letting his words settle in. Then she asked, and if I do this, will I find love? The seeker smiled. Love is not something to be found, he said. It is something that recognizes you when you are ready to see it. For the first time in her life, the woman felt something shift inside her, not the false comfort of being desired, not the fleeting excitement of being adored, but the quiet, profound realization that love was never about being chosen. It was about understanding why. And so, as the river continued its endless journey, So too did the woman, this time? Not searching for love, but searching for herself. Reason 2, people fall in love because they see themselves in you. The seeker sat beside the old man, watching the gentle sway of the leaves in the late afternoon light. The warmth of the setting sun wrapped around them, golden and unhurried. Much like the way the old man spoke of love, without urgency, without grasping, without the desperation the seeker had so often seen in others. The old man's face, lined with years of both joy and sorrow, carried no trace of regret. Though his wife was gone, his love for her remained, unwavering, undiminished by time. The seeker had met many who had loved and lost, but rarely had he seen someone who still carried love as if it had never left. He turned to the old man, curiosity growing within him. "How did you love her for so long?" The old man chuckled softly, as if the answer was so simple, yet so often misunderstood. "Because she was me, and I was her." The seeker furrowed his brow. "How is that possible?" The old man gestured toward a tree standing tall before them. "Do you see this tree? It does not seek the sun. It simply grows toward it, drawn to it naturally, without question, without struggle. My love was not about needing her. It was about recognizing myself in her. She was not a remedy for my emptiness. She was my reflection." The seeker sat with these words for a moment, letting them settle. He thought back to the woman he had met by the river, the one who had been loved, yet had always felt empty. Her love had been a temporary refuge for others, a way for them to escape their own voids. But this love, the love the old man described, was different. It was not about escaping something. It was about coming home. "So love that lasts," the seeker murmured, "is love that recognizes itself." The old man nodded. "Yes. When someone loves you because they lack something, their love is fleeting. It is like the tide drawn to the shore, powerful, consuming, but always retreating. But when someone loves you because they see themselves in you, their love is eternal. It is not a love that arrives in a rush, nor one that fades with time. It simply is." The seeker was quiet for a long time, watching the way the old man's gaze softened as he spoke of his wife. There was no pain in his voice, no longing, only a love that existed, unchanged, untouched by absence. "How do you know when love is like that?" the seeker finally asked. The old man smiled, his eyes twinkling with the kind of wisdom that comes not from books, but from living. "When love does not come with fear, when it does not come with urgency, nor with the feeling that you must hold on to it or risk losing it. Love that recognizes itself does not beg to be kept. It does not ask to be proven. It is not something you possess, it is something you are." The seeker thought back to the times he had believed he was in love. The moments of passion, the intensity, the longing. But behind all of it, wasn't there always fear? The fear of losing it. The fear of it changing. The fear of not being enough. He had mistaken the fire of desire for the warmth of love. But fire needs fuel. And when it burns through it, it dies. But what if someone does not see themselves in you? The seeker asked. The old man turned to him with a gentle expression. "Then it is not your love to carry." The words hit the seeker like a quiet truth he had always known but had never been able to put into words. How often had he tried to make someone love him? How often had he tried to become what another needed, hoping that if he could fill their void, they would stay? The old man sighed, stretching his hands out before him as if touching something unseen. People think love is about effort, about proving oneself, about becoming something that another will cherish. But love that lasts does not ask you to become anything other than what you already are. When two people recognize themselves in each other, there is no chasing. There is no proving. There is no fear. The seeker looked back at the tree, now bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. The old man was right. The tree did not beg the sun for warmth. It did not twist itself into something else to receive its light. It simply grew, and in doing so, the sun illuminated it naturally. So then, the seeker said, a small smile playing at his lips, love is not something to find or chase. It is something to recognize. The old man chuckled again, nodding. Now you understand. The seeker felt something settle inside him. A quiet knowing that he had never felt before. Love was not about longing, about need, about completion. It was about seeing, truly seeing, oneself in another. And when that happened, love was not something that could be lost, because it had never been something external to begin with. He turned to the old man one last time. And what happens when two people recognize themselves in each other? The old man smiled. A soft, knowing smile. Then love does not end, not even in death. And with that, the seeker understood what he had been searching for all along. The seeker sat before the silent wanderer, his mind still carrying the echoes of the conversations he had had along his journey. He had seen love that burned brightly but quickly faded. Love that grasped and clung. Love that sought completion in another only to dissolve when the illusion was broken. But he had also seen love that endured. Love that did not waver. Love that did not ask for anything but simply was. He looked into the wanderer's calm eyes, searching for guidance. Master, I have seen both kinds of love. What should one do with this knowledge? The wanderer smiled, as if the answer were already known, waiting to be remembered rather than learned. Do not chase love, let it reveal itself, he said. If someone loves you because they lack something, they will leave when they no longer lack it. But if someone loves you because they see themselves in you, that love will remain, even in silence. The words settled into the seeker's mind like ripples on a still pond. How often had he searched for love, believing it to be something to be attained, something that required effort, timing, or luck? How many times had he tried to prove himself worthy of love, thinking that if he could just become enough, love would stay? But now, he saw the truth. Love was not something to be chased at all. He bowed his head, understanding at last. So the secret is not to seek love, but to be whole within oneself. The wanderer nodded. Be as the moon, he said. It does not beg for attention, yet its light touches all who look upon it. The seeker let those words sink in. The moon does not chase the sky, nor does it demand to be seen. It simply exists, steady and unchanging, allowing those who seek its light to find it. He thought back to all the times he had tried to mold himself into what he thought someone would love. How many times had he sacrificed parts of himself, believing that love was something to be earned? How many times had he mistaken longing for devotion, intensity for depth, need for love? He looked up at the wanderer. Then what must I do? The wanderer's gaze was steady. You must stop making love a goal, he said. Stop believing that love is something outside of you. It is not a treasure to be found, nor a prize to be won. Love is like the air, you do not chase it. You simply breathe. The more still you become, the more clearly you will see who comes to you, not out of need, not out of emptiness, But out of recognition, the seeker frowned slightly, still struggling with the idea. But if I stop searching, will love ever come to me? The wanderer gave a small smile. Has the river ever needed to chase the ocean? Has the tree ever begged the sun to shine upon it? No. They simply are. And because of that, the ocean welcomes the river, and the sun embraces the tree. It is in their nature to meet. The seeker exhaled slowly, as if letting go of a weight he had carried for far too long. Love was not something that required pursuit. It was not something to be grasped, held onto, or controlled. It was something that, when true, would flow naturally, without force, without fear. But what if love does not come? He asked. The wanderer's eyes softened. Then you are already whole. What greater gift is there? For the first time, the seeker realized that his longing for love had never been about love itself, it had been about himself. It had been about filling something inside him, that he was afraid to face alone. But now, he understood. Love is not a savior. It is not a rescue. It is not something that exists to complete us. True love, the kind that lasts, the kind that does not waver, is not something you seek. It is something that arrives when you are already whole. The seeker sat quietly for a long time, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin, listening to the soft rustling of the trees, watching the world move at its own pace. He did not need to chase anything. He did not need to hold on. And in that stillness, he finally felt free. The seeker sat in silence, the weight of his journey settling into his bones like a long-awaited understanding. Love had once seemed like a mystery, an unpredictable force. Something to be chased, grasped, held onto at all costs. But now, he saw it clearly. Love was never about finding someone else. It was about seeing, not just another person, but oneself. He thought back to all the times he had searched for love as if it were a missing piece of his existence. How often had he looked to another to fill a space he was too afraid to fill himself? How often had he mistaken attachment for devotion, urgency for depth? He had believed love was something he could attain if only he were good enough, attractive enough, worthy enough. But he now realized that love was never about becoming something for someone else. It was about being. The wanderer had spoken of the moon, not needing to call for attention, yet still illuminating the night. He had spoken of the river, not needing to beg the ocean, yet still finding its way. These things did not chase, did not grasp. They simply were. And because they were seen. Love was the same. It was not meant to be a desperate search, nor a puzzle to be solved. It was a reflection, and the only way to receive love in its truest form was to become whole within oneself. The seeker closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. He had spent so much time looking outward, searching for someone who would finally love him in the way he had always longed for. But now, he understood the truth. He had to first love himself. Not in the way that people often said. Not in empty affirmations or fleeting moments of self-acceptance. But in the deepest way possible. He had to become whole. Not for the sake of attracting love, but for the sake of being. He had to stop looking for love to fix something inside of him. Stop hoping that another person would quiet the fears he had yet to face. Love should not be a remedy for insecurity. It should not be an escape from loneliness. Love was not something to complete him. It was something to reflect what was already complete. He thought back to the woman by the river. The one who had been adored yet always felt empty. People had loved her, but they had only loved her as a solution to their own needs. They had seen her as a way to escape their own voids. And when those voids were filled, their love disappeared. She had spent her life being a placeholder for others. Never truly seen? How many people had done the same? How many had mistaken admiration for connection? Desire for depth? The seeker now knew what to ask. Whenever love arrived, he would not be blinded by its beauty, nor deceived by its intensity. He would ask himself, why? Did they love him because they lacked something? Did they love him because he filled a space inside them that they did not know how to fill on their own? Or did they love him because they saw themselves in him? Because they recognized something familiar, something true. He had met the old man who had loved his wife for a lifetime. A love that had not faded even after death. That love had not been built on need. It had not been a temporary shelter from loneliness. It had been a recognition, a knowing, a reflection, a connection that required no proving, no chasing. That kind of love did not come and go. It remained. Even in silence, the seeker understood now. If love needed to be chased, it was never truly his. If love required convincing, it was never truly there. If love came from a place of lack, it would always disappear when the void was filled. But love that recognized him, love that saw itself in him, that love was different. That love would not waver. And so, he let go. He let go of the idea that love was something to seek. He let go of the belief that he needed to become more in order to be loved. He let go of the fear that if he did not chase, love would never come. He became like the river, flowing without force. He became like the tree, growing toward the light, not begging for it. He became like the moon, shining without need. And he knew, with quiet certainty, that when love came, he would know. Not because it would fill a void, but because it would recognize itself in him. And that kind of love, the kind that did not need to be earned, the kind that did not arrive with urgency, the kind that did not fear silence, was the only love that was real. Love is a mirror, reflecting either emptiness or recognition. It does not disguise itself, nor does it lie. It only shows what already exists. And once you understand this, once you truly see it for what it is, you will never suffer for love again. You will no longer fear its loss or chase its presence. You will no longer question your worth based on whether or not someone chooses to love you. Because you will finally know, the love that comes from lack was never really yours to keep. And the love that comes from recognition was never something you had to earn. There is a quiet power in understanding this. A peace that settles into your bones, reminding you that love was never meant to be a game of pursuit. It was never meant to be something you molded yourself to fit into. Never meant to be something you had to fight for. True love does not require convincing. It does not need grand gestures or desperate proof. It simply arrives, effortlessly. Just as the river finds its way to the ocean and the sun rises without permission. The moment you stop seeking love, the moment you stop believing that it is something to be captured or won, is the moment it will find you. Because love is not drawn to longing, it is drawn to wholeness. It is drawn to those who do not need it to feel complete. It is drawn to those who have found peace within themselves. To those who have become their own source of light. Be like the moon. It does not beg to be seen. Yet its glow touches all who look upon it. It does not chase the night. Yet it belongs to it. It simply exists. Steady and certain. Illuminating the sky with a quiet presence. And because of that, the ocean moves toward it, drawn by a force greater than words or desire. So, too, will love be drawn to you, not because you seek it, Not because you fear its absence, but because you have become a reflection of something real. And when it comes, you will know. Not because it arrives in a rush of passion or desperation, but because it will feel familiar. It will feel steady. It will feel like home. Take a moment now and reflect. Have you spent your life chasing love, believing it to be something just out of reach? Have you measured your worth by whether or not you are loved? Have you confused intensity with depth, mistaking attachment for devotion? If so, let this be the moment you release that weight. Let this be the moment you stop chasing. Let this be the moment you begin to trust that love, true love, will find you when you are ready to receive it, not when you are desperate for it. If this message has resonated with you, if you have found even a small piece of clarity in these words, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What has love taught you? Have you ever experienced a love that reflected lack? Have you ever known a love that simply was? Let's create a space where we can share wisdom, where we can support one another on this journey of understanding. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. This is a place for deep reflection, for meaningful conversations, for uncovering the truths that bring us closer to ourselves. If you've ever searched for answers about love, about connection, about the things that make us human, this is where we explore them together. Thank you for being here, for taking this journey, for opening your heart to these words. May you walk forward not searching, not waiting, but simply being. And in that stillness, may love find you, gently, effortlessly, just as it was always meant to.